All right, hey, good morning, everybody. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to come to this town hall today on a Monday. I first just want to recognize the elected officials that are joining us. Here with us today are Representative Kushmerek from Fitchburg, Representative Kilcoyne from Clinton, Representative Scarsdale from Pepperell, City Councilor Claire Frieda, where's City Councilor Frieda, and Representative Higgins from the City of Leominster. And our special guest today, who is here with us from the South End, the first Secretary of the Executive Office of Veteran Services, John Santiago. So, Mr. Secretary, grateful for you coming out to be here with us today. And before we jump into things, I also want to give a special thank you to Mike Cooley, who's the general manager here, for allowing us to use this space in the Franco-American Club and provide this venue and all the work that went into the setup. So thank you, Mike. Can we give Mike a round of applause? Yeah. So I'll be very brief. It's important, and the purpose of today is really to have a dialogue. And I know there's a lot of veteran service officers in the room and a lot of people who are committed to making sure that we're providing adequate resources and support for our veterans. But the first part will be a bit of an update from the Secretary, from some of the legislators about some of the work we are doing on Beacon Hill to make sure that the Commonwealth remains the leader among states in providing veteran services, but also to have an honest dialogue and back and forth. We're not here for rounds of self-congratulations we're here to really have an honest conversation about how we can better provide services and how we ensure that we remain the leader in treating our veterans with dignity and honor and providing the resources they need to repatriate into society. So very excited. We're going to have the Secretary come up, give some remarks, and then we will open it up for questions, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. But first, I'd like to invite the state representative for the City of Leominster, Representative Natalie Higgins, to introduce the Secretary.
Thanks, Senator. And he gave me some notes so that I could properly introduce the Secretary, who I very gratefully got to serve with in the House. So Secretary John Santiago is both a medical doctor and holds his Master in Public Health, and was sworn in as the first Secretary of the Executive Office of Veteran Services on March 1st, 2023. Most recently, he served in the Massachusetts State Representatives for the 9th Suffolk District in Boston, where he advocated to increase funding and services to address the substance use epidemic, affordable housing, and tackle health disparities. Secretary Santiago is a board-certified emergency medicine physician who practices at Boston Medical Center, still the city's safety net hospital and the New England's busiest trauma center. Prior to completing medical school at Yale University, he spent 5 years abroad, including service as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Dominican Republic and a Fulbright scholar in Paris. He is currently a major in the United States Army Reserve and has deployed overseas twice. And I can just say one of the best appointments that Governor Healey made was Secretary Santiago. I think the entire legislature knew the passion that he was going to bring to making sure veterans' voices were heard, to making sure that all of the ways that the government kind of interlinks and often doesn't talk to each other is going to work better. And I will say, I have so greatly appreciated his commitment to coming out across the Commonwealth to make sure that those services are supported and robust, not just in Boston, but across all 351 cities and towns, and owning where there are gaps in those services and where we can do better. We're Massachusetts, we are home to some of the best services for our veterans. They don't always meet the mark, and they don't always meet people where they need them. And I'm just really grateful to have Secretary Santiago here to take this moment today to have a discussion and talk about the ways that we can strengthen the protections here in Massachusetts. So, Mr. Secretary.
Well, good afternoon or morning. I forgot what time it is. It's 12:15. I feel kind of distant from you, so if it's okay with each and every one of you, I'll come up here. Representative Higgins, thank you so much for the kind introduction. It's great to be here with you and your colleagues, Scarsdale, Kilcoyne, Kushmerek, Senator Cronin. When you called me and asked, what do you think about coming to Leominster, Pittsburgh, your district, to talk about veterans, to hear about what's happening across the state and what's happening in this city as well, I said absolutely. Happy to be here, happy to join you. Many of you I've met before, Many of you I'm meeting for the first time, but looking forward to working with each and every one of you to make sure that Massachusetts remains the best place to be a veteran across the Commonwealth. So as the Senator said, what I thought I'd do is just spend a couple minutes talking about what we're up to over the past 16 months and start this dialogue with you. I'm not a very smart guy. I think if I had any power to do anything, I'm just good at listening to folks and trying to pushing their vision forward, right? So if you have ideas, you want to work together, you want to collaborate, please send me an email. I read all my emails. I zero them out every single day. I want to hear from you. I want to connect with you. I want to make the veteran situation in your respective city or town better. So how did I get this new gig? As the representative said, this is the first time ever that Massachusetts has a Secretary of Veteran Services. So what does that mean? For many years, this was a department. It was one of 16 or 17 departments within this behemoth of an agency that's called HHS, Health and Human Services. It's the biggest agency in state government. Almost half of state government, it's $26 billion. And as a result, you could probably make the argument that maybe lost in that bureaucratic madness, the Veteran Department didn't get the resources or face time that they needed. And so for many years, actually, before I got here, before my colleagues were in government, probably some of you out there were fighting to get a veteran secretary. I see some folks shaking their head here. We're probably involved in that fight. So we're thankful for that advocacy, for that effort that made this happen. And what kicked that into hyperdrive was what tragically had happened at both veterans' homes. So as many of you know, over 100 veterans tragically passed away. The majority of which at Holyoke, but some of which at Chelsea as well. And so when I first got the call about this potential position, I was actually still deployed. Governor Healy calls, and we're talking about a variety of issues: healthcare, veteran issues, government, the legislature, and we started talking about veterans and this new opportunity to really reshape, reimagine, and to support our veterans across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. She brings up this idea about this new secretary and what she wants to do and how passionate she and the lieutenant governor feel about veterans. As many of you know, the LG, lieutenant governor, her father served in the Navy for decades. The governor, I think, was born on a naval base. They care very much about this issue and wanted to move proactively and want to make sure that they were investing the resources needed to make sure that Massachusetts remains number one. So we talk about the job, and at first, I'm like, wait a second. We're talking about the secretary who's going to run both homes, the secretary who's lost trust in the veteran community, the secretary's got to do all these things. It seemed intimidating. I had a new son who was a couple months old. I was deployed at the time, a medical career, I loved the legislature, so I didn't give her an answer. And then I began to think long and hard about my own service. Serving with soldiers, treating them, my work in the legislature, and I thought, you know what? If I could help the situation in Massachusetts, play my little role in supporting veterans, I'm good. I called her right back up and I said, Governor, I'm all in. So for the past 16 months, we've been working hard to really change, reimagine services across Massachusetts. I'm proud that with respect to the veteran homes, we secured the federal financing to build a brand new home in Holyoke. And if anyone's been to Holyoke in the past couple of months, things are ahead of schedule. It's a $500 million project. I'm proud that in Chelsea, if anyone's been to Chelsea, the new building's up. We actually expedited the construction of that to make sure we can get that completed by early 2024. Construction was built, veterans have moved in, it got DPH license, all certifications. That was part of the legislature that our colleagues put forward here. And things are going great there. We installed new leadership and are revamping, reorganizing, restructuring how we go about providing veterans the care they need. Because for decades, they were not DPH licensed. They didn't have to follow the rules with Medicaid. So we are bringing a certain level of structure, expertise, and increasing the quality of life for veterans at those both homes. And we're also expanding them. Chelsea's going to be 154 veterans. Holyoke's going to be 254 when that's completed in a couple of years. And in addition to that, we've said, we can do more with respect to geographic equity. Now, if you look at Holyoke and Chelsea, the vast majority of those veterans live around there. But what does that mean for a place like Leominster, or Clinton, or Fitchburg, right? Or what about the South Shore or the South Coast? So we've started looking at potential other places across the Commonwealth where we can invest in, maybe not as big as a home as in Chelsea and Holyoke, but somewhere we can support our veterans. So I've been pretty busy with the homes, but there's so many things to talk about with what we're doing. I just want to highlight a couple of those things. One of which is the HERO Act, which arguably will be the broadest, most comprehensive veterans piece of legislation that I can't even, for a long time I thought the 2005 Romney bill was the most comprehensive. But if you look at this bill, particularly with the additions that both the House and both the Senate just put forward last week, this bill, should it move forward, should it get to the governor's desk, and if she signs it, will be the broadest, most comprehensive veterans bill done in the Commonwealth, and I can't tell you how long. I'm excited about it because it's about inclusivity, it's about increasing services, it's about supporting our veterans and making sure that they're getting the care that they need. Another thing I'm excited about is the reason why I came here this morning. Before this event, a couple of us were just a couple miles away at Leominster looking at potential opportunities to house veterans. As some of you know, housing is the number 1, 2, and 3 priority of this government. She asked each and every one of us in the cabinet, irrespective if we were the housing secretary or not, she said, listen, get active in the veteran space, or excuse me, the housing space. We put forward the largest investment to end veteran homelessness ever, $20 million. It's 5 components. I'm not going to get into the specifics here, but we've moved it forward, and we want to partner with many of you out there who are already doing this work to make sure that each veteran in the Commonwealth has a place to go, and not just the place, that's the roof, but the services that we know that they need to support them. One big thing that I'll finish with is our commitment to engagement. Perhaps it's my background as a community organizer, as an elected official, but I felt there was so much to engage with the veteran community. We created a brand new office of engagement. If someone emails our office, if someone wants to engage us on a housing project, services, we have an office dedicated to working closely with them, seeing how we can collaborate with one another to make sure that we're engaging, that we're listening, because the best ideas come from the front lines. To Representative Higgins' point, I still work in the ER today. I do about a shift a week at most, because it reminds me of what's happening in the real world. I get my best ideas when I listen to patients who are having issues with this or that. I bring those to Beacon Hill, to my secretariat, and hope to implement those to make sure the good work can be done. So with this engagement office, we've done just that. We've also been very active in the employment space. Did you know, prior to the new secretariat, our role in the employment space for veterans and the education space was not very much, almost zero actually. When I came into this office, I quickly learned that we might have some services in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but not enough people know about them, which speaks to that engagement piece, right? I'll tell you a true story. When I got back from that second deployment, I'm actually Googling about veteran services across the Commonwealth, and I'm finding benefits that I never knew existed. And I'm the Secretary of Veteran Services. What that taught me is that we could do so much more in communicating and listening and working alongside our partners. So I'm thrilled to be here with each and every one of you. I'm looking forward to the dialogue. Thank you again, Senator Cronin, and to the legislators who've invited me. We have the governor's office here as well. Thank you so much. He's been a lead on veteran issues from day one. So I'm excited to be here, and thank you so much. I look forward to the dialogue. We dialoguing now, Senator, or we?
Yeah, anybody would like to come up and maybe see their question is the microphone. I think that might be the best as well.
Look who's first.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Senator, this question is probably more for you. The House passed the HERO Act unanimously. When can we expect that to pass at the Senate?
Spoiler alert.
Last Thursday. So we passed the bill last Thursday, and just to get everybody on the same page in terms of legislative process, the House and the Senate will now appoint a conference committee to reconcile the two different versions of the bill. So there'll be 3 members of the House, 3 members of the Senate. They'll come together with the objective of putting a bill before the governor before July 31st. I'm really proud. I had 3 amendments that were a part of Senate debate last week. One is going to allow cities and towns for the first time to use direct deposit for Chapter 115 or allow the use of mail for Chapter 115. And it's really a recognition that there are parts of the state where veterans face huge transportation and mobility barriers, especially our older veterans. My grandfather is 91. He just lost his car. And unless his girlfriend's there to give him a ride, he has trouble going to see a veteran service officer, right? And the other thing that we got into the Senate version of the bill is really what I would call an important transparency and accountability metric, and it's to make sure that everybody in the state has visibility on utilization of veterans benefits across the state and by municipality. So it's going to document outreach, and it's also going to document utilization of really important safety net programs that we have in the Commonwealth, like the Chapter 115 program. So we can see where we need more work, we can see where we need more attention, and we can also see where veterans are taking advantage and connecting with the resources that they've earned and that are available to them. Sure.
So you spoke about housing. What areas of improvement are you going to be focused on outside of housing moving forward with the executive office?
So just to make sure I understood that question correctly, I did speak about housing, but you want to know what we're doing outside of housing?
Yeah, what other areas
Yeah.
are you most interested in trying to improve?
Great. So let me start with the basics here. When we took on this new challenge to create this new secretariat, it was kind of like a startup. It's a brand new organization, brand new leadership. So my first 30, 40 days, essentially just hiring people to do important jobs, right? But it was also a turnaround because some of the culture, the accountability issues that we saw at Chelsea and Holyoke, that infiltrated some of the highest parts of government, right? So the first 3 or 4 months, really just building the structure that you needed to do in order to enact the type of change that we wanted to see. So we did this, but we did this in conjunction and with the support of so many people, some of which in this room. For example, the HERO Act, how did that start? That started with a 50-state review. I looked at every state and I said, what is happening across the country? If it's in Alaska, Virginia, Florida, give me the best ideas. So we launched an exhaustive study of what's happening, the benefits that they get. Let's see what we can do in Massachusetts, right? When it came to the veteran homelessness initiative, we looked at Virginia. They've been able to accomplish functional zero. Now what that means is that no veteran remains unhoused, right? And that the need is covered, right? That there are enough units there to house veterans, right? So we took their playbook, right? The 2 things that I saw, the largest gaps were in education and were in housing. Excuse me, education and employment. When a veteran comes back from deployment or when their service finishes up, it's been my experience that the 2 things they often ask for are, where am I going to work? And I think I want to go to school. How do I make it happen, right? We hired this guy by the name of Mike Aldred, Navy vet himself, who has some legislative Beacon experience. And we put together a program, a new office called Veterans Education Employment Training Office. And he's hit the ground running. And one of the initiatives I'll talk about is really based on this other Virginia idea called V3, Virginia Values Veterans. It's the idea that if you are an employer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and you want to hire veterans because you know veterans are faithful, they work hard, they listen, and they're adaptive, but you can't find them. How can state government partner with you to make that happen, right? And so we're in the process of it. It just came out 2 weeks ago. We launched it at Amazon, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago. And the idea is that if an organization, small business, large business, what have you, they take a curriculum to gain some military cultural competency, they jump on a website, and we're able to forward veterans to them. I'll give you another example. On the employment space, the Department of Labor here in Massachusetts, another secretary, Secretary Lauren Jones, they actually have a federal grant to hire 20 plus, almost 30 FTEs to get veterans jobs, particularly disabled veterans. What role did my organization have in that? Zero. To me, that didn't make sense, right? Because if you're looking for opportunities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, when you Google veterans, you're probably going to run into my office. And the fact that we had zero involvement with that, so I called Secretary Jones, I said, listen, you're working in the veteran space. I think we can work together to revamp that. So for the past couple of months, we've been doing just that, working with some VSOs to create a pathway so the mass hires, the Secretary of Labor, her folks, are engaging with veterans or engaging my office so we don't lose track of veterans. So we're better able to point veterans in the right direction, to make sure that the investment that the federal government is making in that secretary with that grant is being used as effectively, as efficiently as possible. So when it comes to employment, education, we started the first Student Veterans Council in a while, and housing. Those are some of the priorities we have. And I also want to say that we're revamping some of the current uses. I see some VSOs in the room today. Folks, many of you are familiar with Chapter 115, the annuities. We're trying to bring some of those programs to the 21st century with respect to data and how we manage those. When it comes to Chapter 115, we put this conversation back with Jason and Rick here. We are in the process of working on this idea that hasn't been talked about for a long time to get some of our VSOs, all of our VSOs accredited, which we think will improve training, improve standardization, and get us more compliant with the VA. One big strategic thing that I wanted to do is partner very close with the VA. When I got into this position, there seemed to be, I don't want to say divide, but there's a lost opportunity in partnering with the VA. The VA, and I'm a VA patient as well, I guess I would say that, it's a $400 billion organization. Tremendous amount of work they do in the healthcare space, but outside that as well, right? How are we at the state level leveraging that? We can do a whole lot better job with respect to efficiency. If we have a women's program, we have a women's program as well. Why aren't we working together, right? They can work with some veterans, but they can't work with all veterans. What's that gap, and how can we fill in that gap? Because we have a bit more flexibility at the municipal and state level. So the opportunities have been everywhere, and my goal is really to put together a team, and that's sort of early on, to find out those opportunities and work closely with our partners across the state, VA being one of them. So just a couple of things we've been working on. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir, ladies and gentlemen. Has there been any thought or efforts into looking into the curriculum at the Transition Readiness Seminar that's DoD mandated for all service members that are exiting active service? Because for this state, the large number of VSOs, a large number of veteran population, one TRS exists for service members in this state, regardless of component or service, and that's on Hanscom. Otherwise, they're going to New Jersey. And then second part of that is what efforts are being made for reservists or guardsmen that don't have that opportunity, because unless they have been in a position like yourself, sir, they didn't get to deploy, so they don't have to go to TRS. And I think that's like a missed opportunity to provide local, state resources like all the folks that are here.
What's your name?
Roger.
Hey, Roger. Thanks for the question. Roger, you are absolutely correct here. Those partnerships are vital into everything we do, right? We've been talking to the Guard recently just about this very issue. How do we get more engaged with them? Because anyone who's been in the service knows it's death by PowerPoint, right? It's the same presentation. It's like it goes in one ear, it's out the other. You clock out, you just want to sign your papers and leave, right? We felt there was a big gap with respect to state services. One of the first things we did was to put together a transition toolkit. It's on our website, by the way. By the way, a website we just redesigned completely to make it more easier to understand, to read, to follow. But we've been talking to the Guard recently just about this very issue, and me going out there to Hanscom to talk to them, saying, we want to get involved, we want to get engaged, because there are a whole host, to your point, sir, of state benefits which people aren't familiar with, that I'm actually still learning about some of these. I just had, someone at Beacon Hill, who I'm sure you guys know, Lou Finfer, there's no Lou Finfer, of course. He was expressing to me a variety of options out there in the FMLA world that exist that I wasn't familiar with, right? And so if I'm learning about these for the first time, and here I am, I feel like I'm a somewhat savvy person who could look up information, but I can't imagine being a young person coming back from deployment, looking to support their family, looking for a job, looking for education, going to a presentation with Steph PowerPoint, and letting that all sink in here, right? And so partnering with those folks, the reservists, with the National Guard, is something that we've been talking about for a while, and looking forward, and hopefully the next couple of months you'll hear more about that. Questions, comments, concerns? Yes, sir. And if you could just state your name and the organization you're with, or if you're an individual, that'd be good.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. My name is Andrew Athelina. I work for ClearPath, but I come here as a veteran to ask you a question about what are your marketing, or if there's any plan for communications? Because one of the things you said was when you got out, you're looking for all this information out there. You didn't know a lot of this benefits existed. And I was one of them. I got out in 2017. I spent 6 years reclusive. I stayed home during after COVID. And I didn't know a lot of these benefits we have in ClearPath existed. And I think that when I was actively looking, I was able to find ClearPath, and they told me about all these benefits with Service Dog, with employment side, and also with the homeless side and Housing First. I didn't know none of those existed, right? And I thought to myself, I needed that 6 years ago. How come I didn't know that? So again, my question is, what are your plans for communicating all this information out to the rest of the veterans? Thank you.
I think it's a great question that we've touched on a little bit, but I will tell you that we are in a unique state here in Massachusetts where we have VSOs. I mean, how many states have what we have? None, right? 0. In Massachusetts, it's statutorily required that a city, town of a certain size have a VSO, which is a municipal hire. They don't work for me, but obviously we have a close relationship in making sure that they're engaging with the veterans. If you read any report that's out there that tries to highlight veteran services and benefits and programs and try to better understand that gap, I can promise you the conclusion usually reads the same. Programs exist, benefits are present, services are there, no one knows they exist, right? It happened to me, it happened to you. I got back from Syria, I found out about the welcome home bonus. $1,000 is not going to make or break my day, but for a 23-year-old coming back with a family of 2 or 3, that might for them, right? So that was a reflection that I took very seriously. And so I created a Chief Engagement Office. That's why we put together that transition toolkit immediately, and that we're pushing it out and working closely with our VSOs. That's why we're looking to strengthen that communication and improve the training alongside our veteran service officers, right? We were talking about that, the accreditation piece. How do we strengthen training? How do we really give them or work with them to do what they need to do on the ground? I can't be in every community, nor do I want to be, nor do I have to be, right? But these VSOs do an amazing job. I mean, they know the programs like the back of their hand, right? How do I engage with them, update them with what's happening at the state level, and vice versa, what's happening at the federal level, and really make sure that there's a line of communication going all the way from Beacon Hill to our cities and towns across the Commonwealth. To that end, the last time a large study was done in Massachusetts looking at veteran services and seeing what the gaps were, I want to say that was like 7 or 8 years ago. It was the RAND study, if you look it up. We will ran Massachusetts veteran. That was a long time ago. A lot's changed since then, including a pandemic that's really challenged all the cities and towns and how they look at veteran services. In month 3, I believe, of our tenure, we contacted a variety of organizations, and we put out a bid. And so right now, it's ongoing right now. We're looking at doing a large study. It's going to take a year to do, and we're about a couple months into it, looking at services across the entire state. What we're doing, what we're not doing, what's that gap, who can help us address that gap. And so it's ongoing right now. Because I'm a physician by training, I'm a data guy. That's the way I look at government, right? It's not complete data, but I try to design or work with my team to come up with programs. It should all be based on data, right? And so, to that end, sir, I mean, that's what we're doing. And we're excited about where we're at, but we still have so much more to do, right? If you think we could do a better job, send us an email, send me an email. We're trying to work as quickly and as efficiently as possible to get to people's answers, to show people that we care, that we're listening. And we're committed to doing it, and I can tell you, and that's from the governor on down. I mean, she wants all of government to be just like that as well. I can tell you that because she says it publicly and privately, and many of us have taken that to heart. Because that's the way that I approach government. Yes, sir. Oh, I see one in the back. You mind if I get in Rick first? Oh.
Yeah, I just wanted to address.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So reaching out and getting a hold of the veterans coming back used to be easy. Probably a year ago, the state would send us a list of veterans every couple months that came back into our community. We could send them a letter saying, hey, welcome home, we exist, come see us. The state's not allowed to send us that information anymore because it's covered by some kind of privacy act. So maybe we could fix that somehow. So now we don't know when people are coming home. There are 755 people that get the Sentinel Enterprise, so we can't advertise in the newspaper because nobody's reading the newspaper. So the best way for veterans to get involved in the community is to join the veterans organizations when they come home, because that's how they're finding out about things, VFW, American Legion, DAV. Go see your veteran service officers in every city and town, right? We can't find you. It's very hard for us to find you. We have a Facebook page. Most VSOs in this room, they all have Facebook pages. I'm not on Instagram or Twitter or any of that stuff because that's not what we do. We do veteran benefits. So there has to be a way for the veteran to come see us, to find out about us. And that's you. You have someone that's in your community, you have a friend, you have a cousin, you have a nephew. Say, hey, go see your VSO. Because that's how that gets fixed. That's how they find out about us. Word of mouth. We do have, our Veteran Service Association is creating a outreach package. So we'll be able to do that on Facebook. But if they're not on Facebook, they're not going to see it, right? They're not on Twitter. They're not on whatever that other stuff is. They're not going to see it. They're not seeing it in the paper. So they got to get involved.
The last thing I'll say, and I'll talk about something else we're working on. It's kind of related to this, is the importance of connecting with folks. As many of you know, veterans are at risk of a variety of mental health diagnoses, PTSD. The rate of suicide is higher in the veteran community. It's something I've thought a lot about, and it's something that in this position I'm in right now, I wasn't ready to receive calls from families about funerals or to show up to them. I said, well, maybe I'll get a couple of calls, but the first year, it was very sad. And it just dawned on me that we could do more, that we should do more. So, actually, a couple of weeks ago, we put out a couple $1 million Veterans Community Initiative just to look at, to support organizations that want to help veterans connect. First 3-4 months of our administration, we did this study, maybe some of you in the room were a part of it as well, where we looked at suicide, mental health, illness, and see how we should be addressing that. And one of the first things they said, the recommendation was increase peer support across the Commonwealth. So we put out a couple $1 million to asking veteran organizations, Are there places, whether it's a capital expense, are there programs where we can do that, right? And so we're fostering, or trying to foster collaboration, connection all across the state. And if you have more ideas you want to be supportive of, let us know. I mean, I think the other thing the governor has done as well is that she's really instituted a veterans, not a committee, but a commission to support and advise her. We have one for women as well. When I took office here, there was an audit that was done in the Department of Veteran Services a couple of years ago with respect to women veteran services. As you know, it's the fastest growing group, right? Women veterans. What are we doing about that? You know, the auditor made it clear that we weren't doing enough. She had a whole host of recommendations. So when I got into this office, I read the study. It was about a year ago or so. And we started to implement things to address that. We hired more staff. The outreach to women has been more visible. Hired a brand new program director, which is doing fantastic. More to do. But I say that because we saw that there was a need and we acted on that as quickly as we possibly could. More to do. But yes, your efforts and your service. I mean, we just connected Blue Star Mothers here. We met for the first time. She tells me, we used to be quite active with your office. I said, you know what? Let's restart that. Here's my card, here's your card, let's connect. And that's what we're going to do. So I hand back there.
Sorry about that, so it was just a retort on that comment. I mentioned before you retired elementary corporate. That's part of what my question was. There's no dedicated portion in the DOE TRS curriculum that speaks specifically to those things. What I find is interesting though is again, the only TRS that offers transition readiness seminar is on enhancement for its entire state. And there's a number of active duty and a ton of churches that miss that opportunity because most of it's focused on VA benefits. They got a day dedicated to VSO services. They wouldn't even need that day, VA, play stuff, because that's what the VSO does.
When they first came out with that, we signed up to be a site, the Women's Veterans Office signed up to be a site for that, and they didn't cancel.
That was the question writ large was like, what's being done like at the DOD level, because that's a missed opportunity for all those services.
Oh, listen, I'm going to put my Army hat on for a second. I hear your concerns loud and clear. The DOD is the DOD, right? I mean, big DOD, big VA, and these are behemoth organizations here. We're working on the front lines here with the Guard or whomever wants to see what's happening. I can't walk into DC and change DOD policy overnight. A lot of my constraints are precisely what you point to, whether it's the DOD or VA. And so we're just trying to find gaps where we can execute efficiently and quickly to address some of the issues. Sir, I saw your hand up. You want to stick in the microphone?
I'm going to give one example. Why is the state of Massachusetts not enforcing the veterans' requirements of hiring for their contractors? I'm going to give example of SRTA. I'm going to give example of Bedford, Transit Authority, and MBTA as three examples I know of a contractor that does not even adhere to the 10% of veterans. Forget about adhering to the women employment services. They just don't do it. Can you tell me why that's happening and why we're dropping the ball?
So that office and those issues are run separate from my office, but I hear you loud and clear. That's the OSD, Office of Supplier Diversity, working with veterans to get them opportunities. What I've said to you now, and I'll say to many of you, I look at my job as a force multiplier to really raise the voices of veterans and veteran organizations, veteran community, veteran issues, right? So if you feel, in this case, and I think you're right if I look at the numbers, right? If this is an issue that matters deeply to you and your team and your company or your organization, let us know, and we can work within state government to make sure your voices are lifted. That's been my experience in just about every space, whether it's employment, whether it's contracting, whether it's in housing, is that some of the veteran organizations out there be it for a lack of experience, advocacy, aren't as in tune with what's happening in state government. And so if you think there's a role that I can play with that, it sounds like perhaps there is, yeah? Let me know. I mean, I think we had a meeting recently in Boston with a gentleman who feels very passionate about this. And he sent me a variety of studies which I haven't completely reviewed yet. And so we'd like to be more aggressive and more engaged with that issue as well.
Their attitude, and we have it with an MBTA contractor, one of their big contractors in Worcester that provides the communication systems all over. Their attitude is, you're a veteran, they want younger people in, why don't you retire? And they're telling you 55 and older to retire. Because you go out and get your veterans benefits and stuff, and that's wrong. The second thing, we have one gentleman that's joining one of the posts. Your former Army? Yes. Can you tell me whether you're in the Legion or a DAV post yet? What about the Legion or DAV? No. You want an application?
I got force-fed a VFW application at a recent, are you there, Jason? It's in Revere? Yeah. But no, to your point, I mean, I think the importance of supporting that VCI grant I was telling you about, $2 million to support organizations, is trying to get organizations just like that are doing the work. I mean, we were just at a VFW American Legion DAV post in, where were we last week, Nick? We were in Attleboro, right? Just the changing demographic of the veteran, right? And what that means. How do we go to find perhaps younger veterans, veterans of color, folks who might not be as accustomed to this environment? There's a great organization in Boston that we just funded. For those of you who maybe recently deployed, you remember how many folks are playing video games? Right? It's a big deal in the community, particularly with younger veterans, right? There's actually an organization in Boston, which I just found out about, I'm going to say 2 months ago, that, and I think it's operated by a VA employee who does it on the side. It's an organization catered towards providing opportunities, peer support, communication, camaraderie through gaming. Do some amazing work, right? So we just funded them. But I think if I just say that we need to be thinking about more innovative ways to connect veterans. And so if you have ideas out there, let us know. I mean, we're looking, as I tell everyone, right? As I tell my patients even, I want to hear from you, I want to engage with you. I might not be able to give you what you want, right? But I want to work towards that. I want to work with each and every one of you. And I can tell you that the governor and lieutenant governor both feel just as passionate when it comes to veteran issues as well. Yes, sir.
I have a 3-part question, and most of it's federal, so I don't know if this is the right forum or not. Number one, the PACT Act was signed into law. It'll be 2 years in August. I know a bunch of us that have signed up for it. None of us have heard a word. It'll be 2 years in August. Number two, why does it take so long to get a claim in and get a result? It took me 6 years. That's number two. And number three, why, let's see, how am I going to put this? I'll think about it later.
Well, I don't know if Jason or Rick want to handle the claims issue. I mean, these are all federal issues, obviously. But to the question earlier, I want to be an advocate at that level as well. I mean, I get a variety of emails from individuals or groups about the VA. And so my goal is to connect folks, just like I did when I was an organizer, or just like our tremendous legislators do when they connect people across state government, right? When I said that I wanted to partner closely with the VA, it was for that reason. Right? I can't go into Secretary McDonough's office and say, listen, John Doe needs his claims. I've never met Secretary McDonough. We brought Secretary McDonough here a couple months ago, right? I can't remember the last time the Secretary of Veterans Affairs was in Massachusetts. It's probably been a while, right? 10 years? Yeah. And I told the Secretary, I said, Secretary, I know we've never met before. My name's John. I'd love you to come to Massachusetts to learn about what we're doing here. And if you want to try new things, if you want to add resources, if you want to experiment, come to Massachusetts. Let us do that for you here. Give them the resources, whether it's the VSOs, the hospitals, what have you. I hear you with respect to the claims issues, and I've had personal issues with this as well. You know, it's like trying to sign up, trying to log in. There's like 5 ways to log in, right? It's confusing to me as well. I can tell you that in my experience I've been to DC a couple times, we're talking to the VA. They care very much about expediting. Sounds like, I mean, the PACT Act exploded benefits, right? And so folks are just catching up to that right now. I've heard some stories that it's taken a long time, and I've also heard, other in respect to care. I mean, if you, from a physician's perspective, just putting on my medical hat here, you can compare VAs to the private sector, and the VA medical centers are doing just as well, if not better, when it comes to outcomes. I'm a VA patient. My wait time for an appointment is like nothing. I walk in there, I wait 5 minutes, I see a doctor. I get a telehealth medicine within days, right? I mean, how many VA patients we have here today? I hope you're all pretty satisfied with the care compared to your kind of civilian counterparts. So can the VA do better? Absolutely. Can we do better? Absolutely. We're trying to. Hearing this feedback is good. The more organized we are advocating for these issues, the better I'll be able to advocate for you in DC. Yes, sir.
And Mr. Secretary, I think we have time for one more. Sure.
No, if it's a VA related and the VA takes care of it, that's no problem. I got a letter in the mail today saying that the VA now wants to charge my Medicare for services they give me that are not service related. They want my Medicare number. I've never used Medicare and I'm 77. I was on my wife's insurance through where she worked at the Mart until she retired. And then for the last 9 years, I've only been using the VA. Now the VA sent me a letter saying they want to start charging Medicare, which I've never used, on my wife's insurance for that kind of thing. And the other thing, the third part of that other question was, the VA responds faster, and I don't know why. If a veteran goes out and gets a lawyer to do his claim, I got a friend of mine who couldn't get anything from the VA. He went to a private lawyer. Within 120 days, he's 60% disabled by using a private lawyer.
Well, I can comment on that.
Where do you live? Oh, sir, come see me.
Exactly.
There should be no PACT claim out there for 3 years.
Yeah.
Come see me. I will. Okay?
Again, the importance of having experienced, qualified, well-trained DSOs. Rick's been doing this for 21 years? 20 years. Who's counting? Right? Yeah. He's doing a fantastic job. Rick will walk you through a claim and advocate for you, and that's what my job is, to connect people, right? So send me an email, send Rick an email, we'll connect after that. If there are no further questions, I will hand the mic back to the senator, to one of the reps or the senator.
Can we give Secretary Santiago a round of applause, please? As the Secretary said, right, this is a dialogue, and I hope the conversation continues, so I hope everybody is able to connect with somebody else in the room and continue this important conversation. I very quickly want to thank my staff, Susan Templeton, Kevin Bowe, Jake, who had a big hand in setting this up. I'm grateful to them. And I also want to recognize and say thank you to Rick Botor. So Rick has served the city of Leominster for, as you heard, 20 years. You think about the impact a very good veteran service officer can have on a community. It is no overstatement to say Rick has changed the trajectory of hundreds of people's lives, connecting them to disability compensation, mental health supports, healthcare, you name it. So Rick, thank you, and can you all say thanks for that? I hope everybody is able to stick around. We still have a lot of food. Mike, do you have anything you want to add? Yeah. But thank you all for joining today. And one final thing I forgot, Eladia Romero from Congressman McGovern's office was here today with us as well. So, thank you, Eladia.
Thank you all for coming today. The Secretary, thank you. Everybody is invited downstairs for a beverage. So come on down and keep Liz busy. First drink's on me.
Mike, thank you for having me.
Thank you.